Galactic Military Academy's training grounds echoed with the thunderous impact of massive bodies colliding. Cadet Marcus Chen watched from the sidelines as his Krillian squad mate Vextar effortlessly lifted a 2-ton training weight that had taken 3 other cadets to move just moments before. The reptilian alien's scales rippled with satisfaction as he turned toward Marcus, yellow eyes gleaming with disdain. "Still watching, soft skin?" Vextar's translator rendered his hissing speech into standard galactic. "Perhaps you should stick to the data terminals where your frail species belongs." The other cadets, a hulking Gorvani with stone-like hide, a swift Zephyrian whose forearms moved in impossible coordination, and a crystalline shard whose very touch could cut through steel, all shared knowing looks. In the 18 months since humanity had joined the Galactic Coalition, humans had become synonymous with intellectual prowess but physical inadequacy. Marcus said nothing, simply nodding politely before moving to the next training station. At 5'8" and weighing barely 180 pounds, he was indeed the smallest cadet in their elite command track program. His human physiology couldn't match the raw strength of a Gorvani, the speed of a Zephyrian, or the natural weaponry of a Krillian. But Marcus had learned something during his time at the academy that his alien classmates hadn't yet grasped. Weakness could be the greatest teacher of all. The combat simulation began at dawn. Each cadet would lead a mixed-species squad through the nightmare maze, a shifting labyrinth filled with holographic enemies, environmental hazards, and leadership challenges designed to break even the most capable officers. The other cadets had volunteered eagerly, their previous successes in individual trials making them confident in their command abilities. Marcus stepped forward last, as always. "I'll take whatever squad remains," he said quietly. Instructor. Thane, a grizzled Altarian veteran whose scarred carapace told stories of a dozen wars, clicked his mandibles in what might have been amusement. "Very well, Cadet Chen. You'll command the challenging squad." The challenging squad consisted of Grunt, a Gorvani with anger management issues, Flick, a hyperactive Zephyrian who couldn't focus on orders for more than 30 seconds, and Shiv, a shard whose communication crystals had been damaged in an accident, leaving him nearly mute. The other cadets exchanged glances. Marcus had been given the Academy's problem cases. "Good luck, human," Vextar called out with mock sympathy. "Try not to get your entire squad killed in the first room." The nightmare maze materialized around them, its walls shifting into a dense urban environment under siege. Holographic explosions erupted overhead, while enemy positions flickered into existence on every rooftop and street corner. The objective was simple: reach the evacuation point while keeping civilian casualties to a minimum. Marcus watched his squad mates carefully. Grunt was already tensing for a direct assault, fists clenched and ready to charge. Flick darted between cover positions, unable to settle on a strategy. Shiv stood motionless, his crystalline form refracting the simulated firelight in complex patterns. Other squads had already entered their sections of the maze. Through the communication channels, Marcus could hear Vextar barking orders in his harsh native tongue, demanding his squad follow his aggressive tactics. The Gorvani cadet was similarly direct, using his natural authority to coordinate his team's advance. But Marcus had learned something different during his months of being underestimated. He had learned to watch, to listen, and to understand what others couldn't or wouldn't see. "Grunt," Marcus said softly, his voice cutting through the simulated chaos. "I need you to be our shield, not our sword. Can you create a protective formation for the civilians?" The massive alien paused, surprise flickering across his rocky features. No one had ever asked him to protect rather than destroy. "Flick," Marcus continued, turning to the hyperactive Zephyrian. "Your speed is incredible, but I need you to be our eyes and ears. Can you scout ahead and report back every 30 seconds? No longer than that. I know you work best with short, focused tasks." Flick's compound eyes brightened. Someone finally understood his limitations weren't failures. They were simply parameters to work within. To Shiv, Marcus approached directly, placing his hand on the crystal being's shoulder. The touch created a harmonic resonance that shards used for deeper communication. Without words, Marcus conveyed his understanding. Shiv's silence wasn't a weakness but a gift for observation and precision. As they moved through the maze, Marcus's approach became clear. While other squads crashed through obstacles with overwhelming force or speed, his team moved like a living organism. Grunt created mobile cover. His anger transformed into protective fury for the civilians. Flick became their early warning system, his scattered attention now perfectly suited for monitoring multiple threat vectors. Shiv used his crystalline precision to neutralize specific targets with surgical accuracy. But Marcus's true innovation was simpler than any tactical brilliance. He had learned to fail. Every time the simulation presented an impossible choice, Marcus chose the option that saved the most lives, even if it meant tactical disadvantage. When Vextar's squad prioritized speed over safety, leaving civilian casualties in their wake, Marcus's squad methodically secured each area. When the Gorvani Cadet squad used overwhelming force, creating collateral damage, Marcus found surgical solutions. The maze's final challenge was a hostage situation. Enemy forces had captured a group of civilian NPCs in a heavily fortified position. The optimal military solution was a direct assault accepting acceptable losses. Every squad before them had chosen this path. Marcus studied the scenario for nearly 10 minutes, his alien squad mates waiting patiently. They had learned to trust his seemingly glacial decision-making process. "There's another way," he finally said. "Grunt, I need you to draw their fire. Make them think you're the main assault. Flick, I need you to get behind their lines, not to attack, but to create a distraction. Shiv, can you cut through the building's support structure precisely enough to create a controlled collapse that traps the enemies but leaves the hostages safe?" It was a plan that required perfect timing, absolute trust, and the willingness to risk everything on the assumption that every member of his squad was capable of far more than their limitations suggested. The plan worked flawlessly. As the simulation ended, Marcus emerged with his squad to find the other cadets waiting in stunned silence. Every other squad had completed the exercise with acceptable losses and standard tactical approaches. Marcus's squad had achieved something that hadn't been accomplished in the maze's 5-year history, a perfect score with 0 casualties. Instructor Thane approached slowly, his mandibles clicking in a rhythm Marcus had learned indicated deep consideration. "Cadet Chen," the instructor said formally, "the Academy's Command Evaluation Board has reviewed all squad performances. Based on tactical innovation, leadership under pressure, and the ability to maximize subordinate potential while minimizing losses." He paused, his compound eyes focusing on Marcus with new respect. "You have been selected as this cycle's command graduate, the first human to achieve this distinction." The silence stretched for a long moment before Vextar stepped forward. The proud Krillian scales had shifted to a pattern Marcus recognized as indicating respect among his species. "How?" Vextar asked simply. "How did the weakest among us become the strongest leader?" Marcus looked around at his alien classmates, beings who could crush him physically, outrun him, outfight him in single combat. Then he looked at his squad. Grunt, whose protective instincts had found proper focus. Flick, whose scattered attention had become comprehensive awareness. And Shiv, whose silence had become profound wisdom. "I learned something you haven't yet," Marcus said quietly. "Strength isn't about what you can do. It's about what you can help others become. My weakness forced me to see your strengths more clearly than you could see them yourselves." He straightened his shoulders, feeling the weight of new command, insignia being placed there by Instructor Thane. "Every failure taught me something new. Every limitation forced me to find creative solutions. Every moment of being underestimated gave me the opportunity to observe and learn, without the pressure of others' expectations." Marcus looked directly at Vextar, his voice carrying a quiet confidence that commanded attention. "You mocked my weakness," he said, "but weakness taught me the most important lesson any commander can learn. That true leadership isn't about being the strongest person in the room. It's about making everyone in the room stronger than they thought possible." As the ceremony concluded and Marcus accepted his new rank, he realized that humanity's greatest contribution to the galactic community might not be their technology or their adaptability. It might be their intimate familiarity with limitation, failure, and the stubborn refusal to let either define their potential. The human cadet who had been mocked for his weakness would now lead those who had once considered themselves his superiors. And in doing so, he would teach them the most human lesson of all, that sometimes being underestimated is the greatest advantage of all.